Hi, I'm going to show you how to make this silk ribbon embroidered lavender bag. So I've got some even weave fabric here. This is an old antimacassar that I bought in a charity shop. So I'm just going to cut two squares that are about 6 to 8 inches square. I'm using pinking shears because that'll stop the fabric fraying. If you don't have pinking shears, it doesn't matter. You can do with a bit of fraying, that's fine. So I'm just cutting off the trim so that doesn't get in my way. I'm going to end up with my two squares of fabric. One square for the front, one for the back. I'm going to put one of them into a small embroidery hoop that I've got just to stretch the fabric. And I'm using an air erasable pen, and I'm just going to draw on very roughly where I want my lavender to be. So there we go, that's that done. I've got here some 4mm pure silk embroidery ribbon from craftyattic.com, and I'm just going to run it through a pair of hair straighteners. If you haven't got hair straighteners, you can use an iron, that's fine. It's just that the hair straighteners are a lot easier. This will straighten it out, get rid of any crinkles and things, and make the silk nice and glossy. So I'm using here a chenille needle. Chenille needles are available from craftyattic.com. You can buy a pack of varying sizes from us. So this is a small one. Chenille needles have very sharp points on one end and fat eyes on the other, and this is the needle that you need to do silk embroidery. Silk ribbon embroidery, should I say. So I'm just tying a small knot in the other end, and then I'm just going to clip off the excess of that little knot so it's nice and tidy on the reverse side. And now I'm going to start forming the stem and the leaves of this little lavender sprig here. So I'm just bringing the ribbon up through the fabric and twisting the ribbon till it forms a tight little cylinder of silk. Passing it back down through the fabric again where I want the stalk to end. And then I'm just using a standard machine thread to couch this stem down onto the fabric so that it stays where it should be and it doesn't lift. So I'm starting couching at the top of the stem so I finish at the bottom so that I can then carry on and do the couching for one of the leaves when I've done the leaves. So I always do all my silk ribbon embroidery in white and then colour it afterwards, and that way you only have to keep one set of silk ribbons in stock, just your 4 different sizes. With this project only 3 different sizes of ribbon are needed, and then you just colour them, and that's all you have to keep in stock then. Some different colour pens and some white silk ribbon. So I'm just done my leaf there in exactly the same way as I've done the stem, and I'm just couching that up and then putting the third little thing here, or the second leaf, and I'm going to couch that down in exactly the same way as well. So you can get bundles of pure silk embroidery ribbon from craftyattic.com. We do different size bundles according to your size of your project and your budget. So I'm just finishing the couching there now. And so I've got 2 pro markers here, lush green and grass, and I'm just going to touch the ribbon very lightly with the pens. I'm going to mix these colours together, just allow the ribbon to blend the colours together. Provided you don't touch the backing fabric with the pen, the colours will not bleed out onto your backing. These are permanent pens. You can heat set them if you think you're going to wish to launder them by using a heat gun, but you need to leave them to dry thoroughly before you do that. So here I've got some 2mm embroidery ribbon. I'm just going to do some little French knots here. So to do a French knot, you bring the ribbon up through the fabric, you wind it 3 times around the needle, and then you pass the needle back down through the fabric again, and that will pull the ribbon into a a little knot shape, and these are just perfect for lavender, to give you the look of a little head of lavender there. So just going to do a few of these French knots. You must make sure that you use 100% pure silk ribbon when you're doing silk ribbon embroidery, because nothing else will fold fine enough for you to be able to pass it through the fabric and back through again. I do sometimes get people contacting me saying they've bought different sized satin ribbons. You just can't do it because they're too thick. So I'm just going to carry on now doing little French knots all over the head of this lavender until I've built up the inside of, you know, where I've done this little illustration of where the head's going to go. So I'm just going to cover the inside of that with these little French knots to form the head of the lavender. So I've got two more pro markers here, Orchid and Bluebell. So I'm just using the Orchid colour pen and just touching these French knots, allowing the silk to soak up the pigment that's in the pen. And then I'm just going over and touching the tips with the darker one, and that way you get a very much more realistic looking flower, because we've got some depth and we've got some realistic colouring on it. So again, just touch the pen to the silk knots there, just allow them to soak up the pigment that they want, and it won't bleed out into your backing fabric. So then just touching the tip of those knots with the darker blue. So that's finished that little bit of embroidery now. I'm just going to pop it out of the hoop, and I'm going to start drawing some threads out of this even weave fabric. So I've just picked up a single thread there, and I'm just going to carefully ease it out of the fabric and just remove it, and you can see that gives me a line, so I know exactly then where the warp and weft of this thread is going, or the fabric, sorry, is going. So I'm just now going to strip out probably about 5 or 6 threads until it's about 4mm in width, this little gap that I'm making here. So I'm just going to do that, and I'm going to continue to do it to form a square around this little lavender sprig that I've done, and that's where we're eventually going to thread some more ribbons through to make a frame for this little picture. So I'm just carrying on, just picking up a single thread, pulling it out, and then picking up the thread next to that and the thread next to that, and just stripping out until I've stripped out about 4mm gap out of this fabric. It's quite good fun actually, this bit. You can see now I've pulled a square frame around that design. I've just marked there 1 inch away from the frame with my air erasable pen, and I'm just going to pull out a single thread. This will give me a line that I can stitch on, and this line will then form the outer edge stitch seam line for my bag. I'm going to continue to do that all the way around, so that I've got a single thread pulled out all the way around that square frame. This is a nice way of making sure you get a very square result. Just allow your fabric to do the work for you, really. So you can see there now I've pulled out a single thread all the way around. On the top edge, I'm now going to continue and pull out about 7 or 8 threads, enough to give me a 6 or 7mm gutter that I can run the ribbon through around the top to close the bag once I've filled it with lavender. So just carefully easing out the threads that I don't want anymore. I'm going to keep going with that. I'm now just going to dye a bit of ribbon. So I've got some 4mm ribbon. I'm just running it underneath my permanent marker pen, just allowing it to colour there. And then I'm just going to run it through a set of mini hair straighteners. If you don't have any hair straighteners, you can use an iron as before. This is just really for me to quickly dry the ribbon off and also heat set it as well. So now I'm going to use a tapestry needle. These have got blunt, very blunt ends. And I'm just going to weave this 4mm ribbon that we've just dyed through the frame gutters. So these are the 4 edges that we did around our piece of embroidery there. So I'm just weaving in, out, in, out, in, out in roughly kind of even distances. And I'm just going to do this across the whole piece so that I end up with all of the 4 pieces around this, or the 4 gutters that we've stripped around this piece of embroidery, with this nice woven ribbon effect running through them. If your ribbon twists on you, just pull it backwards and forwards and it will straighten out again. So you can see there we've now done all the weaving to make the nice frame. On the top edge I've just then woven the edges back in so that they disappear into the hole and they neatly slide in the inside of the bag. So on the other piece now, I'm just stripping another large gutter to put the closing ribbon in exactly the same way as I did on the other piece. I'm stripping a gutter that's about 6 or 7 threads wide, about 6 or 7mm, so that we can get that piece of ribbon through later on. So just carefully stripping out these threads to get rid of them. So there you can see I've stripped that. I'm now going to place the other piece with the right side together, so the right side enclosed between these 2 pieces of fabric, making sure this gutter across the top lines up exactly. I'm just going to stick a few pins in, and I'm just going to continue to pin around the piece and then machine on those just the single threads we pulled out. I've machined now along those, and I'm just going to use my scissors or pinking shears if you have them, just to cut the 3 sides of the bag that we've stitched. So I've left the top edge open so that we can fill the bag with lavender, and I'm just now clipping the seams on the 3 sides that I've stitched on the machine. I can now turn the bag the right side in, so I'm clipping out these little corners so they'll lie fairly flat. I'm just going to now turn the bag so that it's the right way around. This is a very quick little project, something you can make up some really lovely lavender bags now for Christmas presents. I like to keep a few things like this in my drawer, so I'm ready if anybody has a birthday or there's a little gift I need to give. So I'm dyeing some 7mm ribbon now. Just running the marker pen along it. I'm just going to treat it exactly the same way that I did the other piece. So I'm just going to run it through my mini straighteners to dry it off and heat set it. So I've threaded it onto my tapestry needle. I'm going to start in the middle at the front and just weave in and out, around and round. You don't have to worry too much about this ribbon lying flat because it's actually going to be pulled up and tied into a bow. And the reason we've started in the middle at the front is that that is where we want our bow to be, so we're going to put the ends there. So I'm just winding along as I go, weaving all the way around. And this little bag is nearly finished now, not too much left to do. So I'm just going to pull the tails so that they're even, and now I'm going to fill my bag with some lavender. There's some lavender I collected from the garden before. I keep it in a nice little jar. So just put about 4 spoons of lavender in here. And now just pull the ribbons so that the bag closes. just pull that into a nice tight little knot. I'm now just going to run it through the mini straighteners again, because pulling it through there has crinkled everything up and I want a nice fat bow. So just straighten everything out again. And then tie it into a nice little bow. And that's our little lavender bag finished. Shouldn't take you very long at all, this one. You could do a few of these ready for gifts. You can get the ribbons in various bundles from craftyattic.com. We also sell the needles if you need any of those. So I hope you enjoyed watching this video, and I hope you have a go at this cute little project. Thank you very much for watching the video, and I'll see you again soon with something new. Bye bye.